flash flood trapped 7 French cavers 100 meters underground. As the water rises, it forces the men up against the cave roof. There is no escape. In southern France, a freak storm turns a weekend caving adventure into a life and death struggle. 7 men scramble into their life rafts and wait helplessly as the floodwaters force them relentlessly upward. The air pocket that's keeping them alive is shrinking. If the water keeps rising, it will crush them into the cave's ceiling and drown them. Nicolas Violande is on his first overnight caving expedition. It is a terrifying initiation.
I was 19 years old at the time. Why, at the beginning of my life, am I going to die here?
Nicolas is the youngest member of the team. He and 6 more experienced cavers have been planning this expedition for months. All of them are from the nearby town of Gramat. They all share one passion: exploring the planet's underground frontiers. The Vitarel cave system is right in their backyard. It stretches for 14 kilometers beneath the fields and forests around Gramat. It's a giant subterranean network of caverns, with an underground river and caves up to 40 meters tall. There's only one entrance. This is how Nicolas and the others have descended into Vitarel. The entry point is a narrow, 40-meter deep well that connects with the underground river. At the start of the expedition, the river is just ankle deep in most sections. In other areas, they need rafts to make their way through the deeper water.
Our goal was to follow the underground river and check out parts of the cave that hadn't been explored in 15 or 20 years.
2 days into their expedition, a freak wave of violent thunderstorms sweeps through the region. Dumping 62 millimeters of rain in just 12 hours. The underground river rises quickly, flooding the cave and blocking the cavers' only escape route. Nicolas and the 6 other cavers have been trapped for most of the day. They huddle together just 1.5 meters from the roof of the cave.
There were no sounds anymore, no noises. It was a silent lake that was rising little by little.
Listen, guys. If we get out of this...
Nicolas tries to boost the group's morale. He tells his friend that he'll buy them all a car if they get out alive. He's only half serious.
We were supposed to meet up with another group of cavers the next day. So once the water rose, we knew our families would sound the alarm and contact the rescuers.
"300 kilometers away in another cave system, Bernard Tort leads a rescue training exercise. Bernard is a world-renowned caver with nearly 2 decades of experience. Now his expertise is urgently needed in France's biggest ever cave rescue attempt.
Hello? On reçoit un nouvel appel, nous annonçant qu'il
We got a phone call that there was a group of 7 people trapped in the Vitarel.
On apprend l'ampleur de la cavité.
It's a huge cave system, and the flow of the river there gets incredibly powerful when there are massive floods. It becomes really dangerous. So we took this call very seriously.
On a peut-être une situation dramatique avec nos 7
We knew we had a potentially tragic situation on our hands.
dans une situation très très grave.
For the men trapped in their life rafts, the hours pass slowly and painfully. At 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, the water is bone-chillingly cold.
We felt abandoned. We asked, why did this happen to us?
The only thing keeping them alive is a pressurized pocket of air between the water and the top of the cavern. The men know their situation is precarious. Any change in the pressure inside the cave could make the water rise suddenly.
I was asking myself, will I have enough air to breathe? It was either we get out, or we will be left to die.
The men must use their lamps sparingly. The lamps burn a flammable gas to make light, and this process consumes precious oxygen. With every breath, they rob the tiny air pocket of its life-saving oxygen. And every time they exhale, they fill the air chamber with increasing amounts of deadly carbon dioxide. As carbon dioxide levels accumulate in the body, breathing accelerates, heart rate increases, tissue fluids become acidic. Extremely high levels of CO2 can cause respiratory paralysis, convulsions, coma, even death. Computer technician Philippe Verger is the team's technical expert. He uses an altimeter to check the air pressure in the bubble. He knows that as long as the pressure remains stable, the water will not rise or drop suddenly. Philippe reports that the pressure is high and holding for the moment. But any change in another part of the river could eliminate their safe haven in seconds. In the town of Gramat, family and friends of the cavers are worried. They fear that the torrential rains have turned the Vitarel cave system into a death trap. Rescuers set up headquarters on a military base above the cave system. Rescue groups from across the country converge on the small town. But because the entrance well is flooded, They are unable to get down in the caves. One of the key rescuers to arrive on the scene is Guy Riviera.
My feeling is that there might be stuff somewhere between here and here. My concern is that can you speak to 2 months ago?
He's a veteran advisor with the country's caving rescue organization called Spilio Secours Français. More importantly, it's where he grew up and began caving as a boy.
Here's what we know. There's been a ton of rain. We have 7 cavers trapped underground, and they've got enough food to last them 3 days. We have to try and rescue them. But we know the only entrance is filled with water.
Nicolas Violande and his fellow cavers have now been trapped for almost 24 hours. So far, the air pressure has held steady. But they're in for the shock of their lives. Upstream in another part of the cave system, some debris breaks loose. As the blockage clears, there's a sudden, dangerous drop in air pressure, then a powerful surge of water.
The moment the water goes down, it goes down fast. Faster than it rose.
On a la cage thoracique qui est prise.
Our torsos were shaking and trembling. Our ears were blocked. You really had the impression you were squished into a bottle and being shaken in every direction.
As the water level drops, the men clamber onto a ledge that had been submerged until now.
We were worried. It was like a whirlpool that was going to suck us down underwater, bash us into the walls, and drown us in the current.
The sudden draining of the water disrupts the pressure in the gallery and creates a bizarre phenomenon. For a period of nearly 10 minutes, multiple waves batter the inside of the cavern.
The noise was absolutely infernal. We were really in the middle of the elements that were in a fury.
The unpredictable underground river presents a huge challenge for the rescuers. In order to conquer it, they desperately need the expertise of world caving specialist Bernard Tourt.
The cave system actually descends, and the river flows through it. So essentially, the current flows downward from the highest point to the lowest point.
He heads for Gramont with a special kayak ideal for this kind of rescue. The water has receded. The trapped cavers make camp on a 3-meter wide ledge. The waves have left them badly shaken.
Il fallait s'organiser.
We had to organize. We had to do something. We said to ourselves, survival starts right now. We had about 3 days of waiting. We figured it would take about 3 days for the water level to drop before we could head back out.
Got some soup packets,
The men carefully ration the food that's left.
rice cakes.
Packets of soup, a few cereal bars, rice cakes, and some caramels.
On a commencé à faire un peu le compte déjà.
We started to tabulate what we had for supplies, what we had for light, how much water we had. We had a stalactite that ran with water. drip by drip, that we collected and purified with hydroclonazone tablets.
Bernard Tourt arrives at Vitarel. By now, the floodwaters have receded. This means that Tourt can attempt to enter the cave system along with Guy Bariviera, the local expert.
Une fois que je suis arrivé sur place,
As soon as I arrived on site, I was updated on the situation, and we quickly made the decision to form a team that would include Guy Bariviera and myself.
qui serait constitué de Guy Bariviera et moi-même.
Rescuing the trapped men is the biggest challenge of Bernard's career. He and Guy will have to navigate a maze of dangerous caves and unexplored galleries to find the cavers. The rescuers know that the trapped cavers planned to go to some of the highest points of the system. If they made it that far, they might still be alive.
Donc l'eau est bien montée de 30 mètres.
Even though the water rose 30 meters at the lower end of the cave system, it didn't mean that it completely flooded the upper end. So, if the trapped cavers were up there when the water was rising, we had every hope of finding them in perfect health.
De les retrouver en parfaite santé.
Bernard and Guy prepare for their underground search with military precision, gearing up with the most sophisticated rescue equipment. This includes Bernard's special two-man inflatable kayak. Guy, who's already been underground on a scouting mission, tells Bernard that the current is very dangerous.
The objective of the mission was go to the furthest point possible in the cave system. We figured once the water started rising, the cavers would have moved camp, would have withdrawn to a higher part of the cavern.
So Bernard and I left on his customized raft with a lot of equipment to fight the current and to do a lot of climbing.
When Bernard and Guy descend into the cave system, they discover that the underground river is still raging in some passages. In others, it's flooded right to the ceiling. Making any headway among the jagged rocks is taxing and dangerous.
We had enough room between the roof and the surface of the water to move forward, but it was difficult because the water had a violently strong current.
After nearly 5 hours of slogging through the cave system, they're finally within striking distance of the cave called Salle du Cône. This is where Bernard and Guy hope the men are trapped, in the higher galleries. The only way to get to those galleries is to climb.
Imagine the Salle du Cône is a chamber that is pointed. So we arrived at a gallery that is situated at this level, and then we had to climb the slope towards the summit of the chamber. It was about a 15-meter climb to get up to the upper gallery.
It's a grueling 5-hour climb. The two men drag themselves forward, hauling heavy equipment and Bernard's inflatable kayak. When they finally reach the upper gallery, it's waterlogged, but otherwise empty, except for one disturbing sign that someone or something has passed through here.
Once we made it to the upper gallery of Salle du Cône, it's basically the highest point in the area. We looked around and noticed there were little bits of plastic stuck to the ceiling. That was incredibly disappointing and distressing because this meant the whole network had been filled with water. It was pretty tragic.
Guy and Bernard know that if the men were here, they would have drowned. If they're still alive, they have to be somewhere even higher in the cave system. The next big cave is Clé de Voûte, another 2 kilometers upstream. Bernard and Guy want to press ahead, but it's too dangerous. The water completely fills the low sections in front of them. They're forced to turn around and head back to rescue headquarters to devise a new plan. Nicolas and the other cavers can only wait. With no sense of time and no daylight, sleep comes in fits and bursts. Some sleep, others talk, and always they worry about the changing water level.
Donc au fur et à mesure, la survie a commencé.
So basically, we went into survival mode.
Manger toutes les 12 heures, c'est
We figured it would be a good idea to eat every 12 hours, and we try to really conserve our energy.
On avait un réchaud.
We had a stove to heat the water so that we could hydrate ourselves as well as warm ourselves.
Et on avait
And we still had a bit of fuel for our lamps to eventually light the way out.
gaz acétylène pour nous éclairer pour la sortie.
They fantasize about the perfect meal.
À partir du moment où on est
Almost immediately,
on a vraiment
the first thing that comes to mind is hunger.
chose qui vient, c'est la faim.
They share and savor memories of great restaurant meals and favorite recipes.
On pense
All you
qu'à
think
ça,
about is food.
manger, manger,
Eat,
manger,
eat, eat.
et, il faut faire
And so we had to be really careful and ration our meals.
nos repas. Je me souviens d'un repas où on
I remember we had one meal that consisted of a spoonful of curried rice,
avait 15 centilitres
15 milliliters of hot tea,
de réchauffer un petit
a
peu.
quarter of mandarin orange, and a rotten chestnut. That was a meal.
When Bernard and Guy resurface, the rescuers adopt a new strategy to speed up the search for the missing cavers. They tell their fellow rescuers that it's difficult and risky to make headway underground. They'll have to find a quicker way to get access to key caverns. It's time to bring in the heavy machinery. The topographers will try to pinpoint the location of caves that rescuers haven't been able to reach via the underground route. The drilling teams will punch through the earth to get direct access to the chambers below. Drilling should create new entry and exit points along the cave system. This will provide shortcuts for the rescuers and hopefully bring them within reach of the trapped cavers more safely and more quickly. Deciding exactly where to drill is a daunting task. Just 30 centimeters in the wrong direction can mean missing the entire cave system.
Sur cette opération, il nous fallait 2 types de machines.
We needed 2 types of machines for the drilling operation.
Profond.
We needed drills that could go very deep to try to locate the river, and we also needed drills that could bore out a hole large enough in diameter for a person to fit through. That was essential.
Once started, the drilling teams hammer away at the rock day and night. At the same time, other rescuers try the underground route via the well, which is the cave's only natural entrance. They must work their way up the river to where they think the men could be trapped. The 7 trapped cavers have managed to hold on for almost a week.
What if it snowed in the valley?
But their situation is getting desperate.
It's totally impossible.
They're almost out of food. What's worse,
I just wish they knew. Can you imagine what your mother...
the water is rising again.
With news of the rising water, the fear flooded right back in. We checked the level quickly and saw the water kept on rising, and the current was getting stronger and stronger. And then the biggest fear for all of us was, we all looked up at the ceiling. Everyone said, no way. There's no way we're going in the rafts again. It was so horrible, so difficult physically, that we wouldn't survive a second flood.
Rescuers work around the clock to find the 7 missing cavers. Then the weather takes another disastrous turn. For the second time in a week, torrential rain hammers southern France. Water floods the cave entrance, shutting off all access. A team of rescuers is underground. Now they too are cut off by the rising water. Above ground, Bernard Tourt has to find a way to warn them, and fast. He scribbles a message on a notepad, attaches it to a bare lamp bulb and a phone, then sends it all down a small drill hole. He must draw the attention of his men to warn them of the dangerous new flooding.
So there was the phone, there was the lamp, and there was the message. And the objective of that was to stop them from going any further. We didn't want them to keep going back toward the entrance to Vitarel, because we knew the water had risen there and they would have been trapped.
At first, Bernard gets no response from the team underground. He waits for 3 hours, then a welcome sign of life from the rescuers below. Bernard warns them to stay where they are until the floodwaters recede.
Okay. Got it.
There's nothing these trapped rescuers can do until the water level drops again, or the drilling crew enlarges the hole so a body can squeeze through. But they are safe.
Okay. And adjust your stuff.
Elsewhere in the cave system, Nicolas Violand and his 6 trapped colleagues have used up almost all the fuel for their headlamps. Even if the water level drops, they no longer have enough light or even the strength to walk out of the cave system on their own. Depression sets in.
We were really wishing the water wouldn't rise to that level again. For me, if that was the case, I would have probably let myself sink. It was a point at which we all wanted to abandon it, to let it all go.
On avait envie de tout abandonner, de tout lâcher.
Drilling teams work around the clock in the race to blast into the rock and enlarge the existing hole. Finally, the giant drill busts through.
Donc ça, c'était vraiment capital pour nous, ce forage. Donc c'est clair que une fois...
That was a major accomplishment for us. Once we created the new opening, it was like removing a whole piece of the cave network.
Tout un morceau du réseau.
But the rescue mission is far from over. Even though they've created a shortcut into the cave network, they're still not certain where the 7 missing men might be, or even if they are still alive. Time underground takes its toll on Nicolas and his fellow cavers. Their main preoccupation now is to fight off dehydration and hypothermia. And now there's another worry. Their supply of water purification tablets has almost run out.
J'étais pas fâché contre quelqu'un ou contre...
I wasn't mad at anyone. I was depressed. I felt abandoned. Abandoned by life completely.
Par la vie, quoi, tout simplement.
By now, the massive rescue effort is an international story. The media has descended on the quiet countryside. Bernard Tourt and his team now have to deal with a new set of challenges, especially how to prevent any bad news from leaking out.
Ça faisait près de 200-300 personnes qui venaient...
There were about 200 to 300 people who came from everywhere. And we had huge problems trying to control that. We heard that some reporters had plugged themselves into our telephone system. We had microphones planted in different command posts. We had people listening to our conversations on long-range microphones.
On avait des gens qui écoutaient avec des micros à longue distance les conversations qu'on pouvait avoir d'un côté ou de l'autre.
Bernard gathers his team and briefs them on the media storm. From now on, they must use coded messages when calling each other.
Ces codes, c'est bien clair.
The codes were used so that the media didn't understand the meaning of our words. So basically, we had time to organize and tell the families.
Prévenir les familles.
The rescuers' code, if they find the survivors alive, is "send us some food." If the cavers are found dead, the code is "send us some carbide." As the drilling teams zero in on the large gallery called Clé de Voûte, the calcified rock slows them down. This kind of rock has a lot of cracks and fissures, which can cause the drill head to bend or break.
Et à l'aide d'une petite caméra, on a des...
With the help of a little camera that we sent down into each hole, we looked to see if there were any galleries. At the same time, we measured the speed of the air current, because if there's a strong air current, that means there's a direct connection with the larger cave network.
The drill has penetrated 28 meters down into the rock. Suddenly, it breaks through to a large cavity of air.
We immediately decided to widen the drilled hole.
Bernard and Guy hope the cavers are trapped here, somewhere in the galleries of Clé de Voûte. But the camera can find no signs of the missing men.
Underground, we always have the impression of hearing noises, bizarre noises, strange noises. Above all, when there's a river and the sound of water.
Whoa.
Nicolas thinks he hears a voice.
I hear it.
One of the others is also sure he's heard something.
Is it voices?
Shh.
Au milieu des bruits,
In the midst of the sounds of water and the sounds of voices that we constantly heard, I believe I heard something a little bit stronger,
un peu plus fort, un bruit un
a little bit louder.
Do you think they're coming?
They wonder if it might be rescuers. But for every moment of hope, there's a moment of despair when they realize it's just an illusion.
Something's holding them up. Yeah.
On s'est dit,
We said,
c'est une hallucination.
is it a hallucination?
Ça serait bizarre.
Two people at the same time? That would be bizarre.
Est-ce qu'il y a effectivement
Is there someone who is trying to contact us?
qui cherche à prendre contact avec
Is there a rescue?
Est-ce qu'il y a des secours?
We looked to our
On a
left,
essayé de regarder à droite,
looked to
à
our
gauche.
right,
On a vu personne.
but there was no one.
Et on a
There was nothing.
personne d'autre. Tous les sept, on pensait énormément à
All
notre famille.
7 of us thought a lot about our families.
Vraiment mort d'inquiétude.
We thought they must be dead worried.
On
After
espère
waiting
que
several days like this,
passer
we all
plusieurs
wish they
jours
still
comme ça,
had hope,
encore de l'espoir,
that they all
et
thought,
qu'elles se disent que
as long as we don't find them,
tant qu'on a
they are still
trouvé un homme,
alive.
c'est qu'ils sont encore en vie.
Les rescapés se connaissaient tous, mais les familles se connaissaient pour la majorité d'entre elles.
The survivors knew each other, but the families also knew one another. During the whole rescue, they tried to help us.
Essayer de nous aider, essayer de nous soutenir. Les équipes de foreurs, les équipes, toutes nos équipes de sauveteurs qui travaillaient en surface, travaillaient 24 heures sur 24.
The drilling teams, the rescue teams on the surface, we were all working 24 hours around the clock. It was raining, it was snowing, it was freezing. The support of the families was very important and helpful and kind to the rescuers. They made us coffee, they brought us food. They really tried to lend support to all levels of the rescue effort in the face of a daunting challenge.
Apporter leur soutien à tous les niveaux de la pyramide et certainement pas dans les endroits les plus confortables, dans les endroits où les difficultés étaient les plus rudes.
The rescuers are encouraged by the enlarged drill hole above Clé de Voûte. They know that if the trapped cavers are still alive, this is the most likely place to find them. Guy Riviera prepares to descend into the cave system once again.
Okay, good. All right.
Guy est rentré sur cette opération.
Guy went underground about 5 or 6 times, and every time he was down for long, complex, and intense missions. All that, combined with fatigue, puts a rescuer in danger of getting injured.
Donc, je dirais, pour moi, il était une personne.
For a guy like me, Guy was the most important resource. I had to send him on missions where his presence was indispensable.
Où sa présence allait être indispensable.
There were 2 possible routes, a main climb and a gallery that went off in another direction.
Guy unhooks his line. He will be joined by another rescuer. Guy believes that if he can discover a passageway through to the river, he'll be able to find the trapped men. If they're still alive, they've got to be close.
We went into that gallery with the hope of finding our survivors. We covered 300 meters. It was the first time that anyone disturbed the soil, and we didn't manage to find a direct link to the river. No sound, no sign of air currents.
Guy explores other areas of the cave system with no result and no sign of the river.
Finally, after many climbs and many obstructions, we reached a cavity of a few meters that blocked off yet another gallery. As soon as I got through the rockfall, there was an enormous sound. It was the sound of the river, the rumbling of water in the gallery, the resonance of that water. And also at the same time, there was the current of air that was tickling my nostrils.
The discovery of the underground river is a big breakthrough. Guy believes that the trapped cavers must now be within shouting distance.
We didn't hear them. There was no sign of life. But at least the search could now accelerate.
They push boulders into the cavern below, hoping that the noise will spark a response from the trapped men. But again, there's no answer.
We'd been underground exploring for several hours by now.
Guy reports to the rescuers on the surface.
43, do you read me?
He tells them that although he has found the river and cleared a passageway to it, there is no sign of cavers and he cannot go any further.
We'd finally found a connection to the river at this end of the system, but the cavers weren't here, and so we needed to deploy new teams to look for them.
After more than a week of rescue work and 5 marathon underground missions, Guy is exhausted. He has no choice but to head back to the surface. When he arrives up top, he briefs the others about the shaft that leads to the underground river and where they need to go next. He's set the path, and a fresh team of rescuers can now continue the hunt for the trapped cavers.
A few hundred meters. Reach a giant shaft.
Cyril Arnaud is a member of the next unit going in.
Okay.
Guy's discovery of the shaft leading to the river was huge for us. We now had a new access point where we could quickly put our feet back in the river.
At this point, every minute counts. There has been no word from the trapped cavers for almost 200 hours. There's no evidence that they have survived the floodwaters. Cyril's team plows forward. They see a bend up ahead.
I think it was about 8 or 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. Everyone was in their sleeping bags. And then distinctly I heard a voice. Someone who was talking to someone else. There, I felt my stomach going nuts. My throat closed.
The 7 cavers have been trapped for 9 days. They are so weak and disoriented that they can't even tell if the sounds they hear are real.
There it is again. Et là, à ce moment-là,
And at that moment, everyone yelled with all their lungs.
tous ses poumons. Oh! Et c'est les quelques secondes qui suivent.
Then we waited. All 7 of us.
On a les-
Stressed, tense, shivering on edge.
Et puis à un moment,
And then we heard
la réponse.
the answer we were waiting for 10 days.
Ça y est. La sensation qu'on a eue.
When we saw the rescuers arrive later, the sensation was unimaginable.
C'est inimaginable.
After 9 days trapped 100 meters underground, Nicolas and his friends now know they are going to get out of the cave alive. To celebrate, they present the rescuers with one of the stale pieces of cake they've been saving.
It was contact with another human being. To know that we were not forgotten, not abandoned, and finally that we would get out.
Though the men have been found alive, Cyril decides not to call up with the code.
Any word yet?
He'd rather deliver the news personally to Bernard.
Alors, ça a été fait dans un seul but.
He did that for one reason only, to keep the information as confidential as possible. Because we knew on the surface there were a lot of people listening in on our comm systems, and if they decoded our message, it could have caused some serious problems.
L'interprétation de nos données codées aurait éventuellement pu poser des problèmes.
In the middle of the night, on the 10th day, the cavers begin to emerge from the bowels of Vitarel. Nicolas Violande is the first to be winched to the surface.
Je pourrais jamais assez remercier
I could never thank enough all of the people who took part in the rescue.
un tant soit peu au secours. Jamais
It will forever be etched in my memory,
nos yeux,
in my eyes.
toujours c'est les premières images.
We'll always remember those first images of the rescuers looking at us,
Ébahis,
seeing us alive at the end of 10 days.
et nous de le voir arriver
10 days of anxiety.
finalement au bout de 10 jours d'angoisse.
What can I do to thank them? You'd need more than one lifetime for that.
It was an immense joy for me when we finally found them. I was a bit disappointed that I wasn't the one who actually met them underground, but to see them a little later when they came out was fantastic.
Évidemment,
This operation was the biggest and longest rescue effort ever in France.
c'est le fait qu'on ait retrouvé les 7 rescapés vivants.
Obviously, the high point of it is that we found the 7 men alive. For me, it will always be one of those experiences that is totally extraordinary.
After the rescue, Nicolas became an SSF rescuer himself, as did several other cavers.
An experience like the one we went through, it certainly leaves a mark on your life.
Moi, quand à cette époque j'avais 19 ans, je connaissais
At the time, I was 19 years old.
ça m'a appris
I didn't know much about life.
personnellement
It taught me a lot. It taught me personally to live more intensely,
à faire
to
attention
pay attention to my choices, and to pay attention to my friends,
à respecter la
to
vie,
respect life.
de resserrer les liens avec tout le monde, puisque
To build ties with everyone,
ça peut arriver,
because it could happen to anybody.
arriver à n'importe qui.
Spéléologie est la dernière activité.
Speleology is the last activity in the world that allows us to uncover territories completely untouched by civilization.
Quand même fabuleux.
It's fabulous.
Tous les sommets
All the mountains have already been climbed by one route or another, but underground there's still much to discover.
par une autre
Today we still find new networks of 30, 40, even 50 kilometers.
qui peuvent faire 30, 40, 50 kilomètres.
Vitarel is now officially sealed off from the world. The military zone is closed to cavers. No one will explore the cave system anytime soon. That is, unless cavers can find a new way in. To this day, many continue to search for that possible fissure, that possible crack that will lead them back down into the abyss.
Si demain on ouvre
If tomorrow we find a new entrance to that network,
ce réseau,
I will be the first to return.
à y retourner.
October 8, 2005. In northern Pakistan, in the capital city of Islamabad, a massive earthquake rips through the Margala Towers in one of the city's wealthiest areas. Inside, all hell is breaking loose. In her ground floor apartment, Khalida Begum struggles to hustle her elderly mother out of harm's way.
I held her hand and brought her to the corridor.
Residents stampede for the exits as the building begins to collapse around them.
After taking a few steps, things started to fall on us. Then the ground suddenly opened up and we fell into it.
One floor above, Amin and her family are desperately trying to escape. But the earthquake's force is swift and deadly. In less than a minute, the seismic monster has wiped out 3 of the Margala towers. The residents who couldn't escape in time were instantly entombed.
Hello, John Holland.
More than 6,000 kilometers away in the middle of the night, John Holland gets the call. He leads one of the world's top disaster response teams, a highly trained group of search and rescue volunteers known as Rapid UK.
When I turned on the TV, you could see aerial pictures of villages and towns that have been totally destroyed. The most dramatic pictures that were coming back were of the Margala Towers in Islamabad.
Holland learns that the earthquake, measuring 7.6 on the Richter scale, has crippled much of northern Pakistan and Kashmir, along with parts of India and Afghanistan. It's one of the worst natural disasters in Pakistan's history.
Hold on a minute, will you?
We would welcome assistance from friends all over the world. We are in the process now of sizing up the damage.
Okay, yeah, I'm on the way.
Nearly 1,200 kilos of special high-tech equipment are loaded for the mission. Everything from stretchers and rescue packs to high-tech searching devices like thermal imagers and vibraphones. At the Margala Towers in Islamabad, there is an urgent need for well-trained rescuers. Hundreds of people lived in these buildings. Nobody knows how many of them made it out alive. One of the people searching for loved ones is 34-year-old Mamoon Tariq Khan. He lived in one of the adjoining towers that withstood the quake. Several members of his extended family lived in one of the towers that collapsed.
I'll be honest, when I just looked at the rubble, 11 flights, all down to just a floor and a half. It started setting in as to what could have happened to my own family. I was the only one, of my immediate family alive.
As Mamoon searches for 4 generations of his family, his thoughts drift to happier times. Mamoon's sister and her young son were inside one of the collapsed towers. Also missing, his 76-year-old grandmother and his 56-year-old mother, Khalida.
Next time, why not bring the refrigerator? It's easier to carry.
During this state of intense loss, I heard my sister's voice. I turned around, she was holding her baby in her arms.
Mamoun's sister and her son narrowly escaped before the tower collapsed.
The very next thing was, you know, where's Mom and Grandma? And she says, they're right behind me.
Mamoun and others who gather at the site struggle to stay positive, but faced with such destruction, it's hard to keep the faith. Even the most optimistic would find it hard to believe that under thousands of tons of rubble, the weight of 10 collapsed floors, Mamoun's mother and grandmother are still alive. They are trapped in a tiny, hollow space. If the mountain of rubble shifts even slightly, it will crush them.
I thought it was the end of the world. I was thinking that only my mother and I had survived and everyone else had died.
Khalida's mother, Ma Bibi, is barely alive. She has a deep head wound that will not stop bleeding.
I was very worried about my mom since she was not in good shape. She was vomiting and I could smell blood. I was expecting death at any time.
John Holland and his disaster response team have arrived in Pakistan.
We were met at the airport by the British Embassy, Pakistan government officials, the military, the police, and because we were the first international rescue team there, everybody wanted us.
Holland and an assessment team head straight to the Margala towers. He evaluates the damage while other Rapid UK members load equipment back at the airport.
The size of the buildings immediately said to me, these people need specialised equipment. They need specialised teams in there.
Holland asks the rest of his team to move as quickly as possible to the Margala towers. The rescuers face a volatile situation. A large crowd of onlookers hover helplessly, desperate for quick results, some kind of sign that family members are alive.
Why don't you help us instead of pushing us around?
I saw the rubble. I was all, you know, on top of them. But knowing that it's going to be a while, it was a terrible feeling to know that they were not the priority right then. And I could not make them the priority either.
Because he's accompanied by officials, Holland is rushed through the crowd. But he knows all too well that in an earthquake, roughly 90% of the people saved are dug out within the first 24 hours. Holland also realizes that aftershocks from the quake can shift the rubble, killing those who are trapped and those trying to save them. The rest of the Rapid UK team arrives and kicks into action. While some of them set up a base camp and communications center, another group starts searching right away.
Anthony, can you put it near the generator, I think?
One of the members is Gillian Dacey, the team's medic. Like all Rapid UK members, she is specially trained.
And that includes basic search, basic rescue, working at height, logistics, security, base camp issues, communications.
The mission has been meticulously planned. Nothing has been left to chance. The camp is fully equipped.
We're a self-sufficient team, so we take out our own food, which is sort of pre-packaged sealed ration packs. We take a small amount of water to start us off until we find a local supply. We take all our own search equipment, rescue equipment, take our own toilet equipment, so we're not a burden on the local people or environment.
At the heart of the operation is a state-of-the-art communication hub.
Check, check. Can you read John over?
Satellite phones as part of the communications equipment, along with computers, broadband internet access, and we've got our own radio communications on site as well, in between team members and the base camp.
The team gears up to start searching the surface of the rubble.
Clear. Proceed to site for surface search. Over.
Roger, over and out. Come on, we're up, everybody.
There are enough provisions at the camp for a 10-day mission. Under the rubble, time is running out. Khalida listens helplessly as her mother moans and grows weaker by the hour.
Here, put this against your head. It'll stop the bleeding, Amin.
I was happy that I was with my mom. It was good that she was with me. I was trying my best to comfort her. I knew that we couldn't get out without the help of God.
John Holland and his team need to take control of the noisy and crowded disaster site.
Before we can start search and rescue operations, the first thing we have to do is clear the rubble. And we're looking at thousands of people on and around the rubble. Asking people to leave the rubble when they've got families missing, relatives, friends, neighbours, it is a very hard job to do. And it's certainly not one I like doing, but it has to be done.
I stayed right next to where the action was for most of the time. I yelled at the administration, I fought with them, and even then, I just couldn't change the pace at which people were being pulled out.
The problem is that the noise of the rescuers above ground can drown out sound coming from deep inside the rubble.
In the beginning, we could hear the drilling of machines and the sirens from the ambulances.
Across the site, operators are ordered to turn off their machines.
Then the drilling stopped. I thought they'd ended the search because they thought that no one else was alive.
The search area is huge, roughly the size of a soccer field. So the team's next challenge is simply where to start.
By hand is going to take way too long to reach him in any reason.
To identify the best area to search, the team studies a blueprint of the towers. Next, they consult a missing persons list.
Literally inch by inch until we can...
So then we were able to match up the flat numbers and where we thought that people might be.
In the process, Holland and his team learn that between 70 and 120 residents of the building are still missing. But despite all the maps and the missing persons list, the team's best clues to pinpoint a primary search area come from local residents.
Yeah, okay.
That previous night, somebody had heard voices. Whether that was true or not, we're not sure. However, you've got to start somewhere, and we based it on information.
Hello? Can anybody hear me? Hello, is there anybody here?
The team begins a sweep of the top of the collapse to see if anyone is buried just beneath the surface and survived the impact.
Okay, be careful, move slowly. Hello, can anybody hear me?
When you carry out calling and listening search, you're not necessarily looking for people just underneath the surface. They could be a few meters down, basically within listening distance.
Is anybody there?
Khalida and her mother are buried so deeply they hear nothing.
It was very scary. We were so buried that we couldn't hear anyone from the outside, and no one from the outside could hear us.
But on the surface, there's a breakthrough.
Okay, everybody over here. Do you have any injuries?
After just 45 minutes, the rescuers find their first survivor.
What is your name?
we had actually located a 14-year-old male who could be heard below the rubble.
The boy has a leg injury, but is otherwise unharmed.
We need stretchers, crowbars, hammers.
Already the team has living proof that their efforts are paying off.
Yeah, the feeling of finding a survivor so quickly after arriving on scene, you think, wow, that is just the most fantastic thing.
That's good, guys. Very slowly.
Only 15 minutes later, they hear another voice.
John, I think we've got a voice here.
This time, it's a woman.
Coming over, Julian.
She was only about 2 meters down, but there was a huge slab of concrete from the floor above, literally pushed against her face. All these people have been standing on her, on top of her, and she was very seriously trapped, very seriously injured.
This stuff out of the way.
So we had 2 simultaneous rescues going on.
We'll get you out as soon as we can, all right?
No one was pulled out that was as far down as you know, my own family was. So as, you know, elated as I was that someone else has been pulled out alive, that did not, you know, raise my hopes for my own family.
The first thing we did was to try and clear the dust away from her face. So she'd been covered in this sort of really suffocating type of dust for a day and a half.
Relax, stay calm. Who's at 2 there? All available first. Move out the way. Move out the way.
In less than an hour, they pull the teenaged boy from the rubble. But it takes a full 6 hours to free the woman from under the concrete slab. One of her legs will have to be amputated, but she will recover. For the Rapid UK team, it's a very good start.
Everybody's had a break. We can... Yeah, terrific. That's great.
Because you suddenly think, we've got 2 people here. By just doing what we class as a surface search, how many more are alive inside this building?
That spurs you on. It spurred the whole team on.
Later that day, the rescuers find a 3rd survivor near the surface. Then the search goes cold.
I was remembering those moments just before the earthquake, and I was thinking what a good moment it was. I was asking Allah to keep my kids alive. I was asking this of Allah all the time.
For the time being, Khalida's mother has stabilized and has stopped vomiting blood.
Hope was all but gone at this point in time. They hadn't found someone for a good 10 hours, I think. Clearly realized that, you know, it was hard for them to survive 11 flights falling on them.
For the Rapid UK team, it's time to switch strategy, to move deeper into the rubble in search of air pockets that might contain survivors. It's hard to believe that anyone trapped in lower-level apartments, like Khalida and her mother, can survive such a devastating earthquake. But non-collapsible objects like sturdy couches, stoves, and filing cabinets are capable of bearing the weight of a collapse. These objects can also create air pockets and hollows known as voids. It's in these spaces that survivors might be found.
It can be the pockets that form from the collapsed roof, or it can be stairwells, lift shafts, anywhere we think there's a space.
You could see voids from the outside. So if you can see voids from the outside, then it's fairly guaranteed that there's going to be voids on the inside.
I guess it comes down to where you are in the building at the time, and a bit of luck. If you happen to be standing in the place that's going to form a void when the building collapses. I mean, that's fantastic. But if you're trapped in an area, if you're trapped under a beam, then yeah, there's no chance.
To hear survivors in the deepest voids, rescuers need special listening equipment.
Okay, let's get the probes down, boys. Ready?
What we use for the sound location is what we call a vibraphone, and that works on seismic and acoustic sounds. And it's basically 3 probes with a control box. Very, very sensitive equipment, and you place it on the rubble or down into voids.
All work, stop! Silence! Batten strike!
And you tap, you bang to people, and what you're looking for or listening for is a response of some kind.
Batten strike!
The sound of the hammer travels deep into the pile of rubble. The team hopes that any survivor below who hears it will shout or bang back a message.
Help me! Please, please, please help!
From the depths of the disaster site, a human voice rises to the surface.
One of the team members who was on the headsets said that he thought he could hear a voice. So I took over the headphones and listened intensely. We banged, we called.
Please!
And every time we banged and we called out, I could hear a very, very faint lady's voice. Very faint.
Okay, we definitely got something. Let's go again. Silence! Batten strike!
She was very deeply buried, and she sounded very, very desperate.
Trapped deep beneath the rubble is 33-year-old Amin. The quake has separated May and her baby from her husband Firas, a United Nations employee, and their oldest son, Hussein. May has broken her back and one of her legs. She cannot move her lower body at all. But for the rescuers, the question remains, where is she?
She was a long way down, and we had thousands and thousands of tons of rubble. I mean, the first thing that really went through my mind, to be honest, was how the hell are we going to get to her?
Stu, keep this probe here.
They try for a stronger signal, one that will help them better pinpoint her location.
Let me know when you're ready, boys.
We tried going down the face of the rubble, literally each layer, calling in.
Hello? Can anybody?
But we couldn't get a better contact at all. If we could get a stronger signal, just say halfway down the rubble, then we could say she's in that area.
And there's different techniques of placing these probes to try and narrow down the possible search area. But it is a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Batten strike! Let's repo again. Those two still stay there. Okay, let's go in one more position.
They are unable to get a stronger signal. Then suddenly, the signal disappears altogether.
We called, there was no answer, and we thought, well, what sort of happened? We thought, you know, it's taken this long. Why did the voice go away? Why did we lose contact with her? What have we done to have lost contact with her? And that really did affect all of us, I think, in some way or other.
More than 30 hours have passed since the quake. What the rescuers don't know is that May Amin's 2-year-old son Abbas is also trapped in the rubble. Another rescue team brings in dogs specially trained to find earthquake survivors. But because the bodies are buried so deeply, the dogs are unable to pick up their scent.
Yes, that's it. It's perfect. It's working. Lower away.
The Rapid UK team turns to another high-tech search tool. It's a special fiber optic probe, designed to twist and bend around rocks and other obstacles.
Fiber optic probe is known as a snake eye. It's a camera basically on a cable and a pole, and it gives you an image of basically what you can see. It's in colour, has its own light source, and you have a control box which basically shows the image, whatever it's looking at.
But yet again, no signs of life. Now the team searches for invisible clues using an instrument able to detect the carbon dioxide signature of human breath.
It's basically a probe with a control box, an analyzer, and you're pushing the probe into voids, areas again, and you're looking for CO2 emissions from exhaled breath of a person that's still alive.
But yet again, the rescuers come up empty. For John Holland and the others, May Amin's voice, reaching out from deep under the earth, continues to haunt them.
There was no point whatsoever that I thought about stopping the search for her. Because in my mind, she was alive. We were not going to give up on her, because you'd have regretted that for the rest of your life. So that was never an option.
We know it's a woman and we think...
In order to continue the search, they have to resort to a riskier method, digging machines.
We took a look at the map of the building, and we made an educated guess of where would be the most appropriate place to start digging in.
Back at the camp, John Holland gets an unexpected break.
Zone 2 to base. Zone 2 to base.
Zone 2 base here. Go ahead.
I was called on the radio to come back because a small void had been exposed that looked like it went further into the rubble.
The void is so small that only one person can enter at a time.
And we could only get in probably about 1.5 meters at this stage because it was just so small. I managed to get the top half of my body in because I'm quite a small guy, so I can get in there.
Is there anybody here? Can you hear my voice?
Called out, and amazingly, she called back. And I knew straight away it was the same voice.
Suddenly, May Amin's voice is coming in loud and clear. She must be close by.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that was a huge, huge lift for the team. But then it all starts again. Exactly where is she? Now the hell are we going to get her out?
Holland burrows through the ground toward the voice. Lined with broken debris, the tunnel is too small to bring in disc cutters and chainsaws.
A lot of the rescues come down to using your bare hands and small tools, which is back-breaking work, and obviously it lengthens the rescue.
Everywhere around him is the reminder of death.
You don't think about them at the time. You know they're there. You try and cover them up. You try and put them out of your mind. We knew that this is day 3. well into day 3. And this person's going to be very, very weak. They may be injured. So it is a race against time.
Moving anything in or out of the tunnel requires slow and laborious teamwork. To make his way toward the voice, Holland and his team must clear a path through heavily compressed debris. Holland has moved 3 meters into the tunnel.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you. My name is May. May Amin. Please.
It is important to reconnect with May. After passing out, she regains consciousness and must fight to stay alive.
I love you.
Just past the TV was a picture on the floor, and it was all smashed, and it was a wedding photograph.
May Amin is now only centimeters away, but Holland is blocked by a large concrete beam, and now he makes a horrific discovery.
Cleared away the rubble and the rubbish, which exposed a body, which was a male, and he was crushed underneath the beam, partially. His head, shoulders were underneath the beam. I couldn't figure it out why he had a small arm. It wasn't his arm, it was a child's arm.
I mean, we quickly worked out that it was May's husband and her other son.
May's husband died trying to save their 7-year-old son, Hussein. The child is still locked in his father's arms.
That beam, in fact, that gave us safety and protection, and gave May probably safety and protection, took the life of her husband and our child, because they were underneath it.
Holland is shocked when May tells him that she can hear her son.
And then I said, what's your son's name? And she told me it's Abbas. I said, call out his name, May. And he called back. Unbelievable. This is a real race against time now, because we've got a young child here that's been buried for 3 days.
May, can you hear this?
Yes, I can hear you! You are very close!
But not close enough. The beam is too heavy to move or cut. They must get a better idea of May's location.
May, can you see the light?
I can see you!
The team needs to come up with a different plan.
After withdrawing from the void, I spoke to other team members, and we had to basically find a way in on the other side of this beam.
12 meters away and even deeper in the rubble, Khalida and her mother are still hanging on, but barely.
I was asking God that if my children had survived, then to save me too. But if, God forbid, my children were dead, then not to let me get out alive. Let me die too.
Rapid UK is busy digging a new tunnel to get to May Amin. This one is even tighter than the last.
Again, was with hands, just clearing the rubble out with hands, and then chopping up the was a table in there, so getting rid of that with a saw.
Working in an area that you can't turn, you can hardly turn your head, is very, very hard.
They are stopped dead by an iron bar 40 millimeters thick.
We had equipment that would have cut it, but we couldn't get it in there.
Instead, they bring in a hydraulic pump connected to a small jack. The jack raises the bar that they can't move by hand, just barely enough for a team member to squeeze through. Team member Paul Worcester is the first through.
Hold on, May. Just stay calm. We'll be with you very, very soon.
Moving through the dark void, Worcester comes face to face with May's younger son, Abbas.
Once he got that chair away, Abbas came towards him, actually crawled over him.
Come on, Abbas. Yeah, that's great. Come on, this way.
Now Holland crawls backwards all the way out of the tunnel, holding the tiny survivor. Miraculously, the boy has no major injuries.
Him crawling up towards me with my light shining in his eyes. Well, I'll always remember that.
The badly injured May needs medical attention urgently.
Initial information that had come out from her was that she had pain in her back and her legs, and that she might have been trapped in some way, which immediately to us was starting to ring alarm bells in terms of medically just how that was going to affect her if we started to move her.
Because of those injuries, Gillian Dacey, the team medic, is sent in.
Yes.
My name's Gillian. I'm a paramedic.
Abbas.
Abbas is fine. He's on his way to hospital. He's all right.
Took my helmet off and put it on the end of the bed to generally light up the area.
My legs, but
Dacey reaches May and spots May's dead husband and son just centimeters away.
At the time, you just you focus. You've got to focus on the job in hand, and I guess I tried not to think too much about it. I don't believe that May had any idea that they were there because she was in a dark room, dark void. I don't think she had any, I hope she didn't have any idea at the time.
Can you move at all?
Dacey learns that May can't move her legs at all.
Okay.
And I was thinking, my gosh, you know, ideally to treat her for those sort of injuries, I need certain spinal stretches and I need all sorts of things. But realistically, in that environment, I knew that was not going to be an option.
We're not going to get a stretcher in here. We're going to need a drag sheet. Can you get me a drag sheet?
Since May is unable to get out on her own, the only solution is to drag her out.
I've got it.
And the most simple tool was to get what we call a carry sheet or a drag sheet, which is basically a piece of a sort of heavy, durable canvas with carry handles, sort of canvas loops sewn into the side of it. And so that was passed down the tunnel to me.
Okay, we're ready to go. Pull.
And I know that caused her some discomfort on the way out, but she was very, very good about not complaining about it.
Slowly, May is dragged out of the void where she's been trapped for the last 3 days. But she must still clear the metal bar that blocks the exit.
It's difficult for us to get under it, and we're trained to get under those small things, but she was lying there, gripping hold of this canvas carry sheet, and then we're about to pull her through a small 10-inch sort of hole or space to get her out.
Nearly 60 hours after she was buried, the rescue team has saved May Amin and her son from certain death.
This massive roar and cheering just goes up. And people shouting, it's like, wow, this is amazing.
whole scene had really changed from when I went in. I had no idea of time when I went in, how long I was in there for. And when I came out and stood up, the spotlights were on. It was like being in a theatre, really. And it was a really surreal sort of feeling. And I just burst into tears.
People say, you know, that must have been a really exciting experience, or you must have been elated when they come out. No, really. Because you're pleased that you've rescued them alive, but they've lost 2 members of their family.
John Holland and the Rapid UK team continue their methodical search of the collapsed Margala towers.
Certainly every day that passes, the chances of survival are diminishing. And in fact, you know, after day 4 normally, day 3 or 4, you're looking for a miracle, absolute miracle.
Zone 2, go ahead.
Oh, we've got a voice back here, sir.
I was back at base camp and I had a radio message. Can I come to Zone 4? We think we may have something.
They hear a voice coming from an area at the very base of the rubble, 10 stories down. The location makes access from the top or sides of the rubble pile impossible.
Way too long to reach him in any reasonable time, because the area next to it that butts up to it, this building is still standing, and so we cannot get any machinery in there. So
there's only one solution.
The only way to get at it was from underneath the adjoining tower, from their underground garage.
Starting from the underground parking lot in the adjoining building, the rescue team works its way to the survivors.
The first thing we had to do was remove all this rubble. The guesstimate was that there's about 20 tons.
Using a concrete breaker in such a confined space is so difficult that rescuers can only work in 20-minute shifts.
In fact, one guy had to lay holding it across his body while the other one operated it because it was impossible to use.
After hours of back-breaking work, they finally make contact.
Hello, can anybody hear me down here?
Amin.
The voice they hear belongs to Khalida. She and her mother are very close to death.
Dei sahar bande chima help da para madad da para ya Allah madad.
On the 4th day, when I called for help, I heard voices coming from the outside. I didn't know if it was someone who wanted to help us or someone who was trapped and needed help.
They gave us their ages, so we knew that one of the ladies was quite an elderly lady, and that she's going to be very weak.
The discovery of a survivor ripples through the crowd.
We try not to tell people until we're positive we've got someone and that we can get them out, because it builds up hope for people falsely.
Do they know their name? Is it a woman?
There was a point, 2 days into it, where I'd seen enough dead bodies come out. I had made arrangements for 2 coffins.
Over the next 16 hours, more than 20 tons are moved out by hand. The rescue team works through meters of bars, pipes, and cable. Along the way, death is everywhere. When Khalida and Ma are found, they have been trapped for 70 hours in a 30-centimeter high void.
Shone a torch down the tunnel, a powerful torch, and asked if she could see it, and she could. And literally you could just see a part of her with her hand moving.
But suddenly, they realize that Khalida does not want to be rescued.
When the light reached us, I got worried, since I knew they were going to rescue me, and I would be informed about my children. Without my children, my life has no meaning to me. My children are my life. If my children are not alive, I do not want life for myself.
She is fine. She's all right, but she's very distressed, and she really needs to know that you and you just turn around for a second. You and your
To prove that the rest of Khalida's family made it out alive, her son Mamoon is brought to the tunnel.
I put my head into a hole and yelled out, and my mother, I heard her very clearly.
We're all okay, Mom. Just wait for them to come and get you, okay? They're coming, Mom.
The love that our mother had for us, that was clear that day. If not before, it was that day.
Because they are so deep in the rubble, it takes most of the day to pull Khalida and her mother up to safety. Against all odds, they have survived nearly 83 hours in a rat hole. Those gathered at the site allow themselves a brief moment of joy.
It was destiny, fate, luck, chance, coincidence, whatever you may call it. The facts were entirely against these two coming out alive. I'd like to thank the great people of Rapid UK. We got lucky in the immediate sense when it comes to our family, but those 3 days made us realize just as much how much loss had occurred from this earthquake.
The massive earthquake killed nearly 74,000 people and left more than 2.5 million homeless. At the Margala Towers site, Rapid UK was able to save 7 people from the rubble.
To go out there and to pull people out of a building where they may not have been able to have much chance of surviving is a huge rewarding.
Give us a chance, and if there's people there alive, we'll find them. A lot of credit must go to the local people that helped and supported us as well.
The search continued for a week, but no other tenants from these buildings were found alive. Scores of people lost their lives in the Margala Towers. Etched in stone are the victims' names, including Amin's husband and her son. Amin recovered from her injuries. She currently lives in Iraq, along with her surviving son, Abbas.
I reflect on that and I think, okay, they're alive, but she's got to build her life again, and that's not easy when you've lost your husband and one of your children.
Today, what's left of the Margala Towers still stands, but the complex is condemned and slated to be demolished. Those who designed and built the Margala Towers have been charged with criminal negligence. Mamoon and others who survived believe that if the building had been properly constructed, dozens of people would still be alive today.
It was a ticking bomb, but we never knew about it until it fell.
A hurricane descends. New Orleans is on the run. At Tulane Hospital, there's no escape for the critically ill.
All visitors are advised to now leave the hospital.
Those on life support can't leave. If the power fails, they die.
New Orleans faces one of the worst storms of the century, Hurricane Katrina.
Within hours, a safe haven will become a prison for the patients and those who care for them.
Look, I can't. Okay, look, we're not going. We're not leaving our baby.
Hurricane Katrina rages across Louisiana. In New Orleans, Tulane Medical Center braces for the worst. Dr. Bob Asciutto is on call, staying overnight at Tulane. He's jolted awake by the sound of breaking windows.
I went to my door to open it, and it was pulled out of my hand. I felt this force pulling me towards a window that was now broken. And I could see the air currents going out the window, along with a fair number of debris that was in the laboratory.
Several colleagues struggle to pull him to safety. The hurricane knocks out the city's power. Hospital emergency generators kick in. Dr. Asciutto heads straight for the intensive care unit.
Well, the hallways were very quiet. There was a calmness that was eerie. Even though outside the building, this horrific storm was going on, inside there was this very strange claustrophobic feeling of warmth, sweating. I actually felt my heart pounding.
Dr. Asciutto is responsible for several critically ill children. If their life support machines fail, they will die.
How's she doing? Let's have a listen here.
He's relieved to find all his patients unharmed, including Drew Schaff, a newborn baby recovering from heart surgery.
Drew was a very seriously ill infant. She was on a ventilator, was on various heart medications to allow the heart to beat properly.
Drew's parents, Steve and Brandy Schaff, live 200 kilometers away. But they haven't been home since their baby was rushed to hospital more than a week ago.
It was 11 o'clock at night and she was just fussing and fussing, and then she turned bluish gray and stopped breathing, and we rushed her to the hospital.
Before the hurricane struck, all patients' families were asked to leave the hospital.
I can't. Okay, well, look, we're not leaving. We're not leaving our baby.
Brandy simply refused.
I knew that I was not leaving my baby by herself in a city that I didn't even live in.
All right, how you doing, William?
Dr. Asciutto's patients and all others on life support have been moved onto the same floor, so staff can watch them constantly. One of the patients most at risk is 15-year-old William Wilson. He depends on a huge machine to keep blood pumping through his body. Without it, he will die within minutes. During the 10 months William's been waiting for a heart transplant, Nurse Jean Braham has become his friend and confidant.
You have rather a thin boy with 4 garden hoses, essentially. coming out of him. It was a little science fiction-esque.
Hey, Gene, looks like we both get a workout.
If not for that, he was your average 15-year-old boy.
In the light of day, an eerie calm engulfs New Orleans. It looks like the hospital's disaster plan is working. In reality, a bigger and deadlier crisis is unfolding. New Orleans is built on land below sea level. The day Hurricane Katrina reaches landfall, several of the levees protecting the city weaken and then fail. By evening, the flood has closed in on Tulane Hospital. Water seeps into the building and floods the ground floor. The hospital's diesel-powered emergency generators are on the ground floor.
Mo, it seems as though I'm losing diesel fuel. I can't lose generators 4 and 5.
The floodwaters are rising by 1/3 of a meter an hour. At this rate, the generators will be swamped by morning. The hospital's emergency command center is unable to get a response from city authorities. So they call the State Emergency Center, 130 kilometers away in Baton Rouge. Mel Lagarde, a senior hospital executive, tries to find out whether the state can provide any kind of support or security.
Look, our generators will be flooded in hours. And I've got kids on vents. I need to know if there's an evacuation plan for hospitals.
Lagarde learns that the entire city is in chaos. There's no help coming.
I'm sorry, Mel. You're on your own.
For Tulane Hospital, only one option remains.
Guys, hold up a sec. We need to evacuate.
Those papers around, guys.
The hospital is forced to organize its own evacuation. With ground routes flooded, the only way out is by air. Staff will have to find a way to fly Drew Schaff, William Wilson, and 19 other critical care patients to safety in the next few hours. By then, the emergency generators will either run out of fuel or be swamped by floodwater. The best bet is Acadian Ambulance Services, more than 200 kilometers away in Lafayette.
Look, I've got 13 neonatals, 4 PICUs, and 4 adults on vents.
Acadian's dispatcher alerts the company's flight paramedic, Mark Creswell. Within the hour, Creswell is loading his helicopter with supplies.
It was just something that was a sixth sense that said, bring plenty of clothes, bring a couple of $100 worth of food, bring several $100 in cash, and anything else you think you're gonna need for a week, and that's what I did.
But the winds are swirling in 60-kilometer gusts, enough to damage the aircraft upon landing. Even for a veteran pilot, it's just too dangerous to fly.
We knew our primary mission that morning was to evacuate babies. I knew I had to have my A game on.
While Mark Creswell sits grounded 200 kilometers away, the water is still rising in New Orleans, creeping ever closer to the emergency generators on the ground floor of Tulane Hospital.
Coming up under knowledge.
They're on their way.
Downstairs in the hospital room, we got an issue here. There's water rising all over the place.
Pete, how much time do we have?
Probably about half an hour.
Early Tuesday morning, Senior Executive Mel Lagarde finds out that the hospital has to turn off the emergency generators on the ground floor. The rising floodwaters will short-circuit the machines within minutes.
Is there anything else you can do for me? We need at least 2 hours on this.
Yes, do we have any pumps available for us to pump out the water? Get Greg to give me some temporary electricity.
There's only one way left to keep the electricity flowing. Electrical workers fire up a portable generator truck in the street outside. The hospital has rented it in preparation for the hurricane. But if the water keeps rising, this generator will also become submerged. A nurse wakes baby Drew's parents in the middle of the night.
Steve, the hospital's flooding. We're evacuating, but I need you.
More alarming news for Steve and Brandy Schaff.
Okay?
Attention all staff, code yellow. Attention all staff, code yellow.
The hospital plans to evacuate their baby without them.
We didn't know they were evacuating at all. And she's like, they're gonna ship Drew out soon. Y'all need to come tell her bye. And I mean, I flew. I had pajamas on and didn't brush my teeth. I just ran down there.
Where are they taking my baby?
They don't know yet.
I was in shock. I mean, I ran down there and I was like, wait, explain this to me.
It's not easy to escape New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans is a swimming pool in and of itself. Water came in from the levees. There was no way for it to get back out again. It's a one-way street.
I've got some good news. We're flying out in a chopper, and they are super cool. Are you coming with me? Of course.
Nurse Jean Braham tells William about the evacuation. He tries not to alarm his young patient. William's evacuation will be exceptionally challenging. He'll need a specially equipped helicopter with medical equipment and a generator on board. The chopper must be large and powerful enough to accommodate William's 227-kilogram life support machine.
William Wilson was on a so-called biventricular assist device. That means it's a device that pumps blood from the pumping chamber on the right side, circulates it to the left side as it's oxygenated, and then to the body. A tube comes out of the right side of his heart into the machine. A tube goes to the main vessel, carrying blood to the body. So his heart is non-functional. His heart simply serves as a reservoir to collect blood for this machine.
Nurse Braham asks other staff to make sure each patient is evacuated with a one-week supply of medicine and fluids. He spent 20 years in the Navy. Crisis management is second nature. The medicine dispenser has lost power and can't dispense any drugs. It's time to bend the rules.
We're leaving. Break open the machine. Now! All right.
Tulane Hospital is now operating with limited air conditioning and lighting. The generator truck outside can only supply 40% of the hospital's electricity. From now on, only the hospital's emergency red sockets have power. They run the most essential services. One of them is the life support machine keeping Drew alive.
So Ryan O'Meara, Texas Children's Hospital, okay? Make sure it says okay, sick.
Dr. Asciutto tries to ease the anxiety of parents about to be separated from their children.
So you're gonna be fine. And no one is gonna be lost or sent to the wrong hospital. I give you my word.
The staff come up with a system to make sure that every patient is accounted for once the crisis is over. The nurses improvise using simple but effective methods.
They realized that they were in control of the lives of these patients, and they had to do things not only urgently, but they had to use creativity to accomplish their goal. The goal was to get the patient out of the hospital, and they used their imagination to the fullest.
When Drew was being prepared for transport, one of the nurses came and she had her camera and she took a picture of all three of us and gave it to us so we could have it to take with us.
By now, floodwaters are threatening the one remaining backup generator outside. Dr. Asciutto and Tulane's staff have been on the phone for hours, calling hospitals outside New Orleans. They're trying to find places for the critical care patients.
Drew Schaff, S-C-H-A-A-F. She's post-op for an aortic obstruction. This kid is really sick. We have to get her out of here now. They'll take her. Dr. Gutierrez at Lafayette Children's.
Asciutto finally finds a place for Drew at a hospital in her hometown of Lafayette. Moving Drew without disturbing her life support equipment will be a delicate and risky job.
I need these tubes taped securely for transport. Drew's flying out by chopper. She's gonna be fine. I promise.
Drew has a large hole between the pumping chambers of her heart, so a band must be placed around her artery to reduce blood flow to the lungs. Because she is in such severe heart failure, she must be intubated. A tube in her trachea enables her to breathe.
In her case, intubation was very difficult because she had abnormal anatomy of her airway. It's always more difficult in a baby, and the smaller the baby, the more difficult the procedure. But in her case, she had the confounding factor of abnormal anatomy. So we were very fearful that if her tube came out, we would be in trouble.
In Lafayette, the wind has died down. 3 hours after paramedic Mark Creswell got the call, his air ambulance heads for Tulane Hospital. He's borrowed a critical piece of equipment from a local hospital. He'll need it to evacuate Drew Schaff.
I called a nurse at one of the local hospitals, an ICU manager, and I asked for their isolate, which is a form of an incubator with a lot of advanced life support gear. And they were readily able to give that to us, no questions asked.
Creswell flies over New Orleans just after dawn. He's stunned to see the city submerged below.
My first impression of Katrina was, wow, I've never seen anything like this. And how am I going to handle it?
There's no longer any air traffic control regulating flight over New Orleans. The possibility of a mid-air collision is on everyone's mind.
Essentially, we were flying blind. Had to use your eyes and keep an eye out for every aircraft around. There were literally dozens of Coast Guard and military aircraft on scene.
Creswell finally lands on the garage roof next to Tulane Hospital. He sees that the building is surrounded by almost 2 meters of water.
I knew that as fast as this water was coming up, they weren't going to have power much longer.
Nobody knows how quickly the water will rise and just when the generator will flood. Creswell does know he has to get 21 life support patients out of Tulane before the power goes out.
Good Lord. Nice to see you.
Everyone had looked like they had been through a terrorist incident. Their eyes were big. They looked like they had been in this incident for days and days and days. They were obviously scared, and the sense of urgency was real high.
As the flight paramedic, Creswell's in charge of the overall evacuation. But first, he has to decide who gets evacuated in what order. Creswell is asked to fly patients to various hospitals scattered hundreds of kilometers in all directions. He's frustrated. For every long-haul trip to a faraway hospital, his team could be making several shorter trips and evacuating more patients.
So the closer we were able to go, the better it would be to be able to get everyone out.
Morning. Okay. Okay, now, these are the patients we want. Now, we want the sick ones, starting with the littlest, because we have isolates coming in. Now, we want to load as many people as we can, so we need the sick, little ones matched with adults that can monitor themselves. No parents, no riders. And we're going to get this all done before you lose power.
It's an ambitious evacuation. Creswell will have to juggle an enormous amount of information. Who's the sickest? What does each patient weigh? Which rescue helicopter is equipped to carry them? He quickly decides which of the infants is top priority.
She's first.
He's picked Drew Schaff.
She was a very sick kid. I didn't know all the details, but I knew she was sick. You could see a big, huge surgical scar down her chest, lots of IV tubings on her, lots of bandages, and I knew that she was a priority, and this was the first kid we needed to get out. We needed to get her out now.
Staff prepare to move Drew from her hospital bed into the special portable incubator.
She was awake for the first time since her surgery, and so I was thinking, great, she's starting to wake up, and they're gonna put her in a little incubator in a helicopter and send her back.
Moving Drew is complicated and risky. If her breathing tube is accidentally knocked out during transport, she will die within 5 to 10 minutes. A respiratory specialist ensures that the tube is perfectly placed in her tiny trachea to minimize movement. Drew's heart also depends on life-saving medicine. After the transfer to the incubator, Drew's team monitors her oxygen saturation, heart rate, temperature, and respiration rate. They watch closely to make sure her skin color stays healthy. The slightest tinge of blue means immediate intervention.
I absolutely remember those last few minutes before they took her. It was hard. I mean, I was a mess. I was crying.
I said, look, we're gonna get through this. We gotta get ourselves together. Let's help out however we can. Just get your mind off it. Know your baby girl is gonna be fine, and we're gonna get you out of here. And so she held up really well.
After 5 minutes, Drew is considered stable. Now she can be transported to the helicopter. Getting to the makeshift helipad will be a journey in itself. Drew will have to be transported from the hospital's 4th floor down to the 2nd floor. Here, the rescuers will enter an elevated walkway that links the hospital to the parking garage next door. Then up another 6 floors to the garage roof. The elevator is the smoothest way to carry Drew down 2 floors. But as the rescue team enters, the door suddenly jams. Then slams shut before Brandy can get back in.
I like freaked out because, oh my God, they're in the elevator. I'm not going to be able to see Drew again. And the nurses start, it's okay. We're going to get her out. We're going to get out. We're going to get to you. It'll be okay. And the guy that was standing on the side of me, just helping, he pulled the doors open and everybody got out.
They decide it's too risky to use the elevator.
We're gonna need those flashlights.
They're forced to carry Drew in her 91-kilogram incubator down 2 flights of stairs. Steve isn't happy, but he knows they have no choice.
Careful!
The floors were sweating because they had lost ACs, so it was very slippery. Lights were flashing from the emergency lights trying to come on and off. The air was just really stale, and it was, just kind of like something you'd see in a movie.
The team strains to keep the incubator perfectly balanced. The tiniest misstep, the most minuscule shift, could dislodge Drew's breathing tube.
Don't drop it!
Bringing Drew down the stairs in the incubator on the stretcher was very nerve-wracking. Knowing if we just, rock it or do anything wrong with it, ventilator down her throat kind of scared me.
It takes Drew's team more than 20 minutes just to get down 2 flights of stairs. Drew isn't out of danger yet. As they enter the raised walkway, the reality of their situation hits home.
When I came downstairs and we were walking across and I saw the water in the street, what really got my attention was the generators that were sitting outside, and the water was coming up to the bottom of the generators that are parked in 18-wheeler trailers. And I knew that Drew wasn't the only person on a ventilator at that time, and if they would lose electricity, I was kind of getting scared.
Drew's parents and her medical team managed to transport her as far as the parking garage next to the hospital. They head for the makeshift helipad on the garage roof.
And I just had to take a big gulp. It just, a little bit of fear just crept in. It's like, wow, this is pretty serious.
It takes them almost an hour to get Drew from her hospital bed to the waiting helicopter. One of the pilots suggests that Drew and another baby double up in the incubator to speed up the evacuation. But Drew's nurse recognizes the other child.
You can't put these 2 babies together. She's just got a tracheotomy. It's likely she's infected.
It's another close call for baby Drew.
Very sick.
Drew will travel with her nurse, but without her parents.
I'm sorry, I can't take you with her. There's just no room.
Well, when will I see Drew?
Mark Creswell can't tell Brandy when she'll be able to see her baby again.
One way or another, I'll get you there.
was gut-wrenching. I mean, there's nothing you can do because they're taking your baby away from you again.
15-year-old William Wilson is still trapped at Tulane. Staff are trying to find a way to evacuate him along with his 227-kilogram life support machine. So far, they've not been able to find a big enough helicopter. It's hard to believe that things could get any worse. But now the hospital is battling more than Mother Nature. Looters are trying to force their way in.
It was like Baghdad on the Mississippi River.
They were just looting to steal stuff at that point. It wasn't, you know, like you need diapers for your child. It was a TV on a piece of plywood.
I know many of us were very angry about what was going on in the streets and what we were witnessing. We were ashamed. I was ashamed. I couldn't believe this was going on in our country.
Outsiders are trying to sneak in through the parking garage. Police rush to keep them out.
There was always the assumption that people needed their fix, the people that were addicted to medicines. So that could have been a reason to break into the hospital. They also saw helicopters coming and going. So they saw it as a means of rescue also, maybe.
All the while, Mark Creswell keeps the evacuation moving.
I mean, it was very exhilarating to see an individual wheeled up to a waiting helicopter, a critically ill child, placed on the helicopter, safely evacuated. And each time a child left, people would applaud.
He's directing pilots and helicopters from Louisiana and out of state as they land on the roof of the parking garage.
How much fuel you got left? How much weight can you take on this thing?
Creswell doesn't know how each helicopter is equipped until they actually land. That means that he can't plan ahead. He's forced to figure out on the spot which patient leaves next based on a mental calculation.
You got a neonate on board?
Then he determines the most efficient use of each helicopter.
Get me a neonate on a vent and a nurse that needs to go as far as Lafayette or Alexandria now!
Evacuation isn't going as quickly as Creswell would like. Only 3 to 4 helicopters at a time are allowed on the garage roof. It takes roughly an hour to move 2 patients. By 3 p.m., they've evacuated 13 patients on life support. Creswell uses a satellite phone to call his coordinator at Acadian Ambulance.
I need helicopters.
I called Mike Sonia. I said, man, I need everything you got. I need every helicopter you can find. I called my dad, who was a superintendent at a local oil company. I said, call all your friends, tell them we need all the helicopters. I knew a pilot in the Army, and I called him, and I said, man, call anybody you can at the Pentagon or whatever and get every Army helicopter you can. We're in a bind.
As helicopters come and go, Brandy pitches in, bringing food to the pilots. Part of Creswell's strategy to keep stranded parents calm.
We put them to work making ham sandwiches, and I kept their daughter that was 200 miles away off of their mind. They had a sense of purpose there. They weren't sitting around twiddling their thumbs. I'm quite sure it passed the time for them.
It kept our minds off of it for a few minutes.
To save time and keep his hands free, Creswell has written down the coordinates of each hospital on his own leg.
And it just stayed there. It was like a permanent reference card. And pilots would land, and It was so loud because of the turbines that you just point to them and they'd program the GPS in with the coordinates. And it's just one of the innovations that we came up with while we were over there.
The generator outside is still above water. But there's only enough fuel left to last until sunset. For the past 8 hours, Mark Creswell has been trying to find a way to reunite Brandy with her daughter. He flags down an empty supply helicopter that's not allowed to carry patients. The pilot says he's not supposed to have other people on board. But Creswell refuses to take no for an answer.
Mark Creswell was like, look, can you take these people? And he was like, I don't think I can, you know, I might get in trouble. And
there comes a time when you gotta throw the rule book out the window.
Creswell persuades the pilot to bend the rules and delivers on his promise to reunite Brandy and Steve with their baby.
he had the heart to just say, okay, these people really need to get to their baby and I'm gonna find a way. So thank you to Mark Creswell.
Just after sunset, William Wilson is still waiting to be evacuated. Suddenly, the emergency generator truck sputters and dies. It has run out of fuel. William's life support machine is now running on batteries.
Okay, there's only 25 minutes left in this battery.
If the device had been turned off within 30 seconds, he probably would have succumbed.
Hospital staff have brought a portable gas generator to the patio outside the neonatal ward. The cable is run into the room and quickly hooked up to William's machine before its batteries run out. But even this last-ditch maneuver is a temporary measure. Hospital volunteers think of a way to produce a few more precious liters of fuel for the generator. In the garage, they siphon it out of the car's gas tanks. It's been 14 hours since Tulane's evacuation order. Staff have still not found a helicopter for William and his machine. Then a glimmer of hope from a hospital in Arkansas.
Gotta go. Thanks for
They have a chopper, and it's big enough. It's also equipped to transport a critically ill patient. It can evacuate William from Tulane Hospital.
It was heavy enough and large enough to fit the machine as well as carry it and the personnel out. The machine weighs 500 pounds. So that's kind of odd, hooked to a boy that weighs barely 125 pounds.
Just after dark, there are rumors of a new threat. Across the city, reports of random gunfire aimed at helicopters.
This was a real problem. Several helicopters arrived, turned around, and left because of it. At this point, many people became very, very upset.
Mel, we have gunfire up here on the roof. We can't keep asking pilots to fly in here, Mel.
Mel Lagarde, in consultation with his staff and the pilots, makes a critical decision.
Okay, guys. I'm suspending all the flights until daylight, okay? We just can't risk it. We can't let anybody out.
But William's portable generator won't last until morning. So the hospital will have to make an exception and get him out tonight.
Don't forget, you promised me riding a chopper.
But evacuating William tonight depends on whether the pilot from Arkansas is willing to risk his own life.
We had learned that the FAA had, quote-unquote, shut down the airspace. And we made a call to Arkansas, and I spoke to their chief pilot, and he said, pilots will experience, he's going to fly in.
Midnight approaches. Hospital staff hear the sound of a lone helicopter.
They just flew in literally under the radar into the city, that was dark, and the only thing that they had was the lat-long coordinates of the hospital, of the garage, and that's how they found it.
As the helicopter gets closer, more spur-of-the-moment ingenuity. 4 cars are parked on the roof. Drivers crisscross their headlights so the Arkansas pilot knows where to land. But William's journey to the helipad will be even more difficult and life-threatening than Drew's. First, a spare version of William's life assist machine must be carried to the helicopter so that it can keep William alive during the flight.
My first thought, it can't be much harder than a refrigerator, right? Refrigerator's big, it's heavy. This machine's not as big, but it's very heavy. We got a dolly. We began to try and move it down the stairs, and it wasn't working. We nearly lost the machine.
Hey, buddy. Okay. These are them. Squeeze. Simple as that, okay?
William cannot be moved while connected to his machine.
At any moment, this young man had 2 tubes coming out of his heart. At any moment, if a tube had dislodged, it would have been instant death.
Promise.
So Nurse Braham will have to hand pump William's heart while he's wheeled over to the helipad. He will literally be taking William's life into his own hands.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
The 1, 2, 3 disconnect moment was one of the scariest moments of my life.
William's nurse isn't the only one who's scared.
He didn't let on a whole lot, but he got quiet, and that's when we could tell something was going on.
At the best of times, William's life assist machine only duplicates 50% of what his heart does. As Nurse Braham hand pumps his heart, that figure is reduced dramatically. He knows that the margin for error is slim.
You're not running any races, but you're alive. If I take this machine away and I began to do this manually, you're at about 40, 50% of that. So you're looking at about 10% of your normal function on this.
As Nurse Braham and William arrive at the helipad, some unexpected news. William's machine won't fit inside the helicopter. As a result, it can't plug into the helicopter's power supply. William must continue to be hand-pumped. There is no alternative.
Which I was shocked by because they'd asked for dimensions and I'd measured everything as well as I could. And it wouldn't fit. And so the look was, what do we do?
With only a fraction of his normal blood flow, William is starting to feel sluggish. He's never been hand-pumped this long. If the wait continues much longer, William's heart will fail. His caregivers have seconds to make a decision.
What do we do? Do we continue on hand pumping, or do we try and fix this somehow? Do we shove it in?
Nurse Braham knows that staying at Tulane is not an option. It's time for some split-second ingenuity.
And then one of the paramedics, again, looked on the bottom, said, hey, these wheels come off.
The removal of the wheels is just enough to allow William's life assist machine to fit snugly in the helicopter.
We slid the machine in, plugged it up, started the engines, off we went.
It is after midnight before William and Nurse Braham can fly out. But at last, they're on their way to safety.
It was a tremendous relief for me for the doors to close, the engines to spool up, and to feel the aircraft lift off.
A few hours earlier, Steve and Brandy arrived at Lafayette Children's Hospital, anxious to find out what happened to their daughter Drew after she was evacuated. Brandy is reunited with her baby.
We got into the PICU and, you know, of course started crying again, and, you know, she's here, she's safe, thank God.
At Tulane Hospital, staff are exhausted but ecstatic. 21 of their critical care patients have been evacuated.
Not a single patient died. These were critically ill patients. A patient that was on a heart-lung machine that in 30 seconds would not have survived if something was disconnected. A patient who left the hospital with his chest open. A patient that was on a ventilator and was critically ill. Several patients that were on ventilators and critically ill. Every one of those patients not only survived, but did well.
After waiting 10 months for a new heart in New Orleans, William finally received one a month after he arrived in Houston.
William is doing very well now. Coincidentally, he went to another transplant center in Houston, Texas, and was transplanted 31 days after he arrived. So his story was successful in the end. He's doing great. He's growing up and growing older, I suppose.
Mark Creswell spent 9 more days in New Orleans, rescuing victims of Hurricane Katrina.
I did this interview, and he asked me what the most difficult task was. And I said, you know, on a regular day, a mass casualty incident, you triage the worst patients and you take them out first. You want to give everybody the best chance of living. And he said, essentially, you were playing God. And I wasn't playing God, I was playing paramedic. And that's what we do.
Drew Schaff successfully went through several more operations and is now a healthy, vibrant little girl.
Drew is a pistol. She gets into absolutely anything and everything she possibly can. I honestly think she's making up for the 4 months she was in the hospital and couldn't do absolutely anything. She's a mess, but she's great.
Over the course of a week, more than 1,200 people were evacuated from the roof of the parking garage next to Tulane Hospital, one of the largest evacuations of an American hospital in recent memory. 6 months after Drew Schaff and William Wilson were flown to safety, the hospital reopened.
Although when I drive by certain areas or go to certain areas of the hospital, there's a very beautiful pavilion in the hospital called the Riley Pavilion. And I cannot walk past that area and not look down and think about what I saw during Katrina. The water, the debris, and it's just shocking. It's something that just will never go away.
It was a happy ending in a city where thousands of hurricane evacuees are still waiting to return. 2 years after Katrina, some homes are still in ruins, and parts of the city remain vulnerable to flooding in serious storms.